Welcome back to the Diary of the CFO podcast, the space where you will find real world insight to become a better leader and be better at life. I'm your host, Wasia Kaman, and today I'm so excited to have with me Janice Stucke. Janice is the CFO and foundation treasurer of Crew Network and has an unconventional career path that is as inspiring as it is impressive. See, before getting into finance accounting, before having a CPA, Janice spent 10 years managing refugee programs around the globe. She came back to the state, wanted to transition into accounting, got a CPA, became director of finance, successfully led several digital transformations at both technology and not-for-profit organizations. She stepped into the role of CFO for the first time and achieving the dream. And she recently completed Ironman. So, Janice, you're a rock star. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. And I'm like, who are you talking about? That's so impressive.
It is. Oh my goodness. So why don't you start telling us about your journey to a CFO, such an unconventional path? What were some key steps that helped you get here?
I think key steps is believing in myself. At the time, I wouldn't have ever thought that I was my own biggest cheerleader. I felt like I have a dream and I just have to go for it and see if it works. It always seemed like a wild card. But to go for the wild card, you really have to be betting on yourself. And I think
Mm,
that has really helped me in my career because times get tough. And ultimately, I'm betting on myself. And sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. But I'm the one that has to deal with the successes or consequences of that. And I think that was first because when I went for that CPA, like no one believed I could do it. I kept hearing, you haven't been an accountant. You don't know anything about accounting. It's an impossible test. There's no way you'll pass. Like people have accounting degrees and don't pass. People are in audit and don't pass. But I
wow.
took that first exam and passed. If I had believed any of the naysayers, which was 98% of people, everyone minus my mother and like my best friend, like I wouldn't be here today, you know?
Wow.
So I think that goes to betting on yourself and knowing your own like what you can do and not needing that constant affirmation in order to keep
Wow.
going. And I think that's in anything. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. I think
It
also
is.
too, like just you really have to be open. I think as we get older, you want to get more rigid and more closed and you want to do things that seem comfortable and failure
Hmm.
seems so much like a bigger risk. But like as we move in our career, we have to be more and more open, which means there's more possibility for failure, but more possibility for success. Because you and I both know we're doing stuff we never imagined we'd be doing, and we have to do
Yes.
it in way we never dream we need to be an expert. And you just have to constantly keep allowing that pivot and that change and not close off to it. And I think that just allows for success and failure, but it's hard to have that mental emotional fortitude.
Today's episode is brought to you by Data Rails, the proud technology sponsor of the Office of the CFO Bootcamp. I created this program to help aspiring CAOs and CFOs fast track their way to the top. It's a 3-week cohort designed for finance professionals who know they're capable of more, but feel like their careers aren't moving fast enough. The February cohort is now open and spots are limited, so go to wasiacommand.com and click Bootcamp to learn more. Now back to the show. For me, especially with the way you were not always in finance accounting, you got in and you became like a powerhouse, right? What do you think were some of the things that prepared you for that? Because what you were doing before on paper doesn't look like it was any transferable skills, for example, or experience, but it actually helped you be where you are now. Can you share a little bit more about that?
So, definitely coming from the refugee world. First, I started off in legal and then I moved to managing refugee programs. And I think the best skill that I got out of that is leading teams from all over the world. Really being able to talk to anyone and meet anyone wherever they are at that moment. I was working with people from every country you could imagine, leading programs in East Africa and Southeast Asia, on the border of San Diego. So you really need to learn how to talk to anybody, how to communicate a message to anyone, no matter the language. And it really forced me to focus on very clear communication skills. At the time, I never would have imagined. I just thought like this is the job and I wanted to be culturally sensitive. But so much of leading is body language and facial expressions and just your energy. And So much can be communicated
Yes.
without actual words. And I think in accounting, we never think about these things really. I mean, there's no point that we really think about like, what is the aura I'm bringing to the team? But when you're working with international teams, like a lot of communication is based on cultural understanding and how you present yourself to be.
Wow.
And I think that's served me well moving into accounting and finance.
Wow. As a CFO, you have a team of people. So when you're looking to promote someone, what are some of the skills, experiences that you look for in hiring that person?
I think a lot of like hiring is based on someone's vision for themselves often when they have to have that vision too. And just
Wow.
making sure we're aligned and where they want to go. So, in promoting or hiring, I want to make sure that I'm going to be working with someone that has that vision of leadership for themselves or of growth.
Nice.
And I think sometimes women and people of color, like no one asks them, do you want to become CFO or do you want to be controller? Do you want to be accounting manager? So, they just don't even envision that for themselves. So I like to ask my team, do you want to be controller? Is that something that you could see? And then give them time to think about that and cultivate possibly that vision for themselves. But even in hiring, like I want to fully understand what is that person's goal or vision? Where are they going? Because I'm definitely an innovative, let's go type person. And I want to work with people that kind of have that bigger vision and energy and growth mindset for themselves.
Nice.
So I always start with that and helping people get to that bigger vision of themselves. Secondly, I want to work with people that have problem solving skills. And I feel like that's a
Mm,
dying art. So
mm-hmm.
many people want to come to the manager or their supervisor and just express the problems. And I know I heard many times, don't say the problems come with a solution. Like an annoying concept when I was going younger and hearing those things, but it really is true. And I think more than just coming up with the problem solving in the moment, it shows that
Mm-hmm.
you are a problem solving oriented person and you have those leadership skills. And I think coming forward at any level with solutions just shows that you're ready for those growth opportunities. And I want to
Okay.
work with someone that is able to face day to day with problem solving and doesn't need me to do all the thinking through and strategic thinking. And I think lastly in accounting is communication. I'm an extroverted person, so I like to communicate. I like to have meetings. I like to have check ins. I constantly take over teams that don't have team meetings because everybody just works in their silos and everyone thinks that works well and it never really does. So I'm a weekly team meeting, constant check ins, constantly communicating with everyone on the team, not just my direct reports. But I think communication and transparency are key. And I want someone that wants to communicate in kind. That's the way you build relationships and trust. And
True.
that's important to me. And I want to work with people that have that skill set or are willing to grow in that skill set. Someone that has that bigger vision for themselves, someone that can problem solve, and then someone that wants to communicate is kind of what I look for as the key factors.
I
And
love
notice
it.
I didn't say skill set because a lot of skill set can be taught, but you can't give someone a personality or leadership skills.
Yes. And I like how everything you said here is all non-finance, non-technical skills, right? Because when we go through school, we feel like, oh, I have to know about Excel and all these hard skill, the accounting guidance. But what you just said is so true. It's really the other things that set you apart, especially for these roles.
And a lot of times you join the accounting team, you're absorbing what they are currently doing. Maybe you can make it better, but your skill set may not be activated per se when you come into an accounting team because they kind of have their own process and procedure. So you have to be willing to learn the current way and then improve it from there.
Yes. And then also when it comes to change, because you have led so many digital transformation. I remember, I think it was 1 or 2 years when we met, you told me you were doing RPA. And I was like, R what? What is RPA? And all these things. So what are your go-to things that you do when you're trying to lead change? Like from whether you find the need, the software, or how you get people on board. What are your go-to moves?
So definitely coming in, like now I've been at crew for 6 months. So
Okay.
definitely coming in and learning the lay of the land is key. Trying to be a good listener, understanding process. I think because I have a non-traditional background and my undergrad was also in economics and statistics, like
Mm-hmm.
I have that unique skill set to see, I call it micro macro. So I can
Okay.
see the micro, so the day to day, the spreadsheets, the movement of data, and start envisioning like how to make that macro. Macro being like the coming together, the financial statements, moving that into the budget. How are
Nice.
we going to forecast? How are we going to report to the board? Thinking through those data flows because it really is
Mm-hmm.
just a web of data. Now, accounting is a web of data. We're not doing ledgers, even Excel is flowing, So for me, I want to make sure that flow of data is seamless. If you're on a spreadsheet and then you have to copy and paste it somewhere else, it's not seamless. I want a direct integration. I want AI or RPA to be able to read off the data. So I'm really excited about RPA is amazing and I'm really excited about moving to AI because I want the data to flow from that initial bill, which is has OCR and the hard data goes in. I want it to be able to flow seamlessly up to the financial statements, the budgets and forecasts where we're just checking for errors. We're not actually putting in data. And so my
Mm.
whole vision is how to have that seamless flow where we do have checks on what's seamlessly flowing, but we're not manually inputting or doing any of those time consuming steps. I want like that natural progression.
That's a dream right there. And then once you have that seamless transition, you get to have time to do other things. But how do you get people on board? Right? Because I love the vision. I like how you say, I always start with wanting to have that seamless integration. Not everybody has that vision. Not everybody, we may have time to implement whatever software or tools are needed to get there. How do you get them on board?
Well, I'm a little bit of a bulldog because there's so much risk right now. And I tell everyone I want to sleep at night. There's so much
Nice.
check fraud, there's so much payables risk, so much risk with money, basically bad actors sending
Hmm.
trying to solicit money, payroll fraud. I mean, just the risk is endless. So I think when we really understand, I just was at a cyber session. 80% of companies have been subjected to payables fraud.
Wow.
And of all the companies, which is a significant number that have dealt with ransomware or data that's been stolen, like the average payout on a business right now is $300,000. I tell the CEO, COO, CIO, like we can't afford to not integrate and have the increased security measures in order to prevent the amount of fraud and ransomware and phishing schemes and all that's happening because an accounting system upgrade, depending on the size of the business, but a medium-sized business, small business is going to be less than 300,000 when the
Hmm.
average payout is 300,000. When you
The
look at
math.
the numbers, the math is mathing in that
Yes.
trying to prevent and you might say directly I don't see how accounting system change is going to prevent fraud, but you have that immediate, you can put in approval control chains, you can have that direct view daily of what the detailed transactions in the accounts, just having that greater visibility and transparency.
Hmm.
We just saw Macy's had an
Oh
accountant booking
gosh.
154 million in wrong entries. You have to have someone, an AI needs to be checking an RPA. You need to constantly have this approval chain and checking for outlier data. And you need higher level systems that integrate to be able to do that. And that's always my vision, like how to manage the risk of the business with better technology. That being said, the problem solving measure, I can have the vision, I can do the integration, I can train the staff. The challenge is the staff like wanting to learn and wanting to grow with that vision as well. And I feel like
Hmm.
that's the challenge accounting teams are facing now. One person has the vision and one person is driving that, but then you need the whole team to embrace it. And
Yes.
studies show that companies are bringing on more and more technology, but 80% of implementations fail because the
Wow.
entire team and how it flows throughout the entire company is not embraced. And I feel like that's now the second phase. Like everyone is on board with more technology, faster financial close, more risk management, like prevention of
Hmm.
fraud. The next level focus is going to be like pushing that technology down from the top to the very bottom so everyone fully understands and embraces that in their day-to-day life to really get that ROI and the full effect of these technologies we're bringing on.
I
And
love
I
it.
don't have all the answers on that, but it's definitely a journey we're all on and I'm constantly thinking through.
And I particularly like how you said it's 300K to maybe upgrade a system, but it's 300K for one instance of if it happens, right? So yes, the math is mathing, but getting people on board is what I'm finding to be difficult. And going back to what you said earlier, when you hire people that want that growth, right? It's likely to have them on board. It's likely to be able to drive the changes you want to do. Now, you mentioned something about AI needs to be checking RPA, and some people may not be familiar with RPA or AI or how the two can integrate. Can you give us a little lecture here?
So, a little lecture is the world of bots. I'm not the world's genius tech person, but whether it's AI, a bot, or just setting up like a macros, you basically program macros is the basic Excel, but now it's so advanced. I mean, it's just this programming of what are the steps in my human logic that I take to check something or to, reconcile a credit card statement. Everything has nuance. So it's
Hmm.
basically building that special nuance so the bot, the macros, the AI can follow that nuanced logic and be able to finalize that flow of logic, but also problem solve in that flow of logic. And macros was like very exact. You do one step 1 through 10. It can't deviate from that. RPA is able to deviate slightly. AI can do 1 through 10 and hopefully have more opportunities to problem solve and correct. So they're just
Nice.
different advanced levels to being able to walk through data flow. And we all know in accounting, like the out of the box systems can never complete 100% of the work. There's
Yes.
always
Oh gosh.
nuance, there's always the data from the past doesn't match the data current, and we have to change the old data, or we added in an entity that doesn't flow. It's so much of that nuance type, which is where the real time comes in. And when you can have a bot or AI, like be able to handle that nuance and that checking, that's where you really save time. And I think that's where AI can only build off the data we have as of
Mm,
current. Where, I mean, unless you're at a huge company where you have people building large language models that can really take the old data, transform, I mean, a lot of steps. Most of us are just in the kind of out of the box options, but it's like the ability to take the data we have and be able to fact check it and be able to change it based on very specific rules. I think that's where the time savings are right now.
And what's impressive with you is that you implemented like RPA at smaller organizations, right? Like we tend to think that, oh, this is only a luxury for organizations of a certain size, but you brought this type of integration down to where you were with limited resources. Can you please share about what that journey was? Because I remember you were like, I don't have a life, haven't have a life for like how many months when you were in the trenches.
So yeah, it started at SHRM and we brought RPA and many people didn't believe. They thought it was going to replace their job. They didn't believe it was going to help them. They didn't see the value in taking the time it takes because you have to map out like each decision-making process. So the first RPA I built was the role at SHRM I had that they wanted to save money and not rehire for. But mostly I was building dashboards and reports. So I built an
Hmm.
RPA to build those dashboards and reports in my absence.
Nice.
The RPA can't grow as the data grows. Like someone has to go in and, make those constant changes. But imagine my entire full-time role was a bot was doing that. So me going from full-time to a bot and even like a human, like the dashboard comes out and then, someone needs to go in and make changes and adjustments. But
Hmm.
what are we talking about? Possibly 10 hours a month in adjustments and changes as opposed to 40 hours a week. That's the power of RPA, macros, AI, and we're always going to need someone to check the data and help it flow through, but like just speeding it up really, really helps everyone in every direction.
Wow, I'm so impressed at the kind of stuff you know, right? Because you're managing a refugee program, you're a CPA, now you fall into digital building bots, okay? How do you navigate all that? How do you keep yourself updated, engaged, like alive? Because you also did an Ironman, by the way. How do you
Minor
put it all together?
details.
Yes.
I'm like someone that really likes to learn and grow, and I don't shy away from growth opportunities. Sometimes I'm
Okay.
growing too much in too many directions, but I remind
Okay.
myself, and I say this on repeat, I have right next to my bed, your comfort zone will kill you. So I wake up and I see that
Mm.
poster, your comfort zone will kill you. And sometimes I'm like, I hate that poster. Like, I want to sleep in. I want to like just have a slow day, but I don't even know what that means anymore. Like
Oh, wow.
every day is growth opportunities. Right now, I'm very heavily involved in our website transformation and adjusting the shopping cart and global payments and how that flows through to our new accounting systems and having the integrations be able to do matching and reconciliation between the website credit card processing and the accounting system. And I don't know how to do that perfectly, but every day I'm focused on the vision, on how to think through and problem solve things I've never done before. So I have to constantly be open to that. And that takes, I feel like you have to constantly have that bandwidth. Like for
Mm.
me, I need to do a lot of self-care. Don't know where that accent came from. A lot of self-care to be able to have that open space to constantly do new things and also to be able to train. Having started a new job, and I was very clear when I was starting the job that I was training for an Ironman and I still wanted to pursue that. And my CEO gave me that support, even in hiring me, and encouraged me to still go for that. But the amount of bandwidth I needed to have to be able to train and lean into new skill sets, it's a lot of mental self-care to constantly have that open space to be
Mm-hmm.
pivoting into new areas at all time and not collapsing. You just really
Yes.
to constantly keep having that open mental space and that willingness to lean in and keep going. When it was my first Ironman and new to the job, like everything is new. And that
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of energy and a lot of mental space to be able to lean into new every day, all day. So
Yes. I mean, so impressive. I remember I told my 10-year-old, hey, Miss Janice just finished the Ironman. And she was like, what is that? I'm like, well, she was biking, swimming, running for like almost 15 hours. And my daughter was like, oh, she's alive. Because she knew if it was her mommy right here, she would be dead on the side of the road somewhere. So impressive, though. And also reminds us of what the future of finance when it comes to CFO would be, right? So you have the communication skills, you have the accounting skills, finance, and then IT on top. What are some of the things you can tell the younger generation, the new generation of leaders, what should they do? I mean, it's almost sometimes feel overwhelming. When you look at it, you're like, oh, I'm going to be that. I'm not trying to do an Ironman. But in terms of at least the CFO role, how can they prepare?
I think as much as Ironman and triathlon and traveling and I speak Japanese, it's just leaning into this constant growth mindset. Like I think the days
Mm-hmm.
of going to work and doing the same job every day, those don't exist anymore. Things are changing too
Yes.
quickly. And I think a lot of women I know get to higher level roles and they're like, it's too much. It's just taking too much out of me. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
handle this on top of family life and whatever else is going on for them. And I think changing that mindset, you and I both know it's always going to be too much, but you just have to constantly self care and have that network around you to help propping you up to keep going. And I think you and I together, I have an amazing triathlon group. I have an amazing finance group. I have amazing family and friends. I have so many spaces in my life of both men and women, but these days, very heavily, I call the sisterhood, who's
Yes.
cheering me on, listening to me, supporting me. And without that, I would give up because the day to day and all the change would just deplete me too much. But I think it's very key to
Wow.
have that support group constantly cheering you on and leaning into them for help and
Yes.
support and encouragement and new thought leadership. And just as you and I were discussing, like, what do you think I should do here? That those trusted advisors, as much as I lean into the sisterhood, I have an amazing group of consultants I work with. And they're
Nice.
mostly men because a lot of the people that are in the various fields, but they're as invested in my success as I am invested in my success. So it's also as much as I have the support group, I have consultants that I can hire that bring that thought leadership and are invested in my success. And I think that's been pivotal to my growth. Having people I can pay that I know when I hire them, they're going to make sure I succeed. That has been a saving grace when times get hard. I can pay someone to assist and I know the job will get done. And that's been hugely helpful. And I'm leaning into that right now with all the IT projects I'm in. And that's keeping me sane because I have to trust them and know they're going to take care of me when I don't have the answers. And so far it's worked, and I will continue to lean into the great unknown with their support. And I think building that network of people you can trust is so key.
Yes. Oh my God. I love it. I love that balance. True. Some it will be free. Maybe I should start charging you. And some will have to pay because it's more work related. But at the end of the day, it takes a village. So you can't just grow in a silo, right? Oh my God. Thank you so much, Janice, for being on the show. Thank you so much for sharing all these great insight. Thank you for being an inspiration to so many women in finance as well.
Thank you. And I'm always glad to see you, Wasia.
That's it for today's episode of the Diary of the CFO. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any topic you would like me to cover in the future, please send it to ask@thediaryofthecfo.com. Again, send an email to ask@thediaryofthecfo.com. If you connect on LinkedIn, you can just send me a DM. The reason I need it is because I want to make sure I bring you the insight you need to be a better leader and be better at life. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a review, subscribe, and share it. And I will see you next in another episode of the Diary of the CFO. Cheers.